Way to save the season to throw. Fire down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego. Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. I think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
Welcome everybody to it. Whoops, how did that get there? Welcome everybody to a after hours coming off a tough loss against the Cowboys. We're here. We don't want to be, but we are. So I mean, I don't know where to start here, but I guess let's talk about Herbert because it feels like he was rattled all day today, felt off, missed a bunch of throws. At the end of the game, threw the interception to go more. Let's just talk about Herb.
Yeah, I'm concerned. I think there's enough of a body of work through 5 games this season to be concerned about what's happening with Herbert. He did not play particularly well against the Dolphins. He did not play particularly well against the Titans. He played really well against the Vikings. I didn't think he played particularly well against the Vikings, and he was, I mean, just say it, flat out bad tonight. About as bad as we've seen him. The only game that really rivaled it, in my opinion, was probably the Patriots game his rookie year. I mean, or the Ravens game his rookie year. He looked lost tonight. He was uncomfortable. He was rattled. Rushing throws, throwing balls off his back foot. I mean, he missed at least 2, if not 3 what should have been easy touchdown throws. Sailing the ball high consistently, not zipping it when he needed to, floating it when he needed to zip it. He was even on the touchdown pass to Keenan, he was late and behind him. He just was not himself at all. And I'm concerned that the pressure is getting to him. Pressure meaning the pass rush. I just feel like he's staring down the pass rush and he's not seeing the field very well. It seems like he's kind of regressing to needing to see guys come open before he throws it. He's not really anticipating things very well. It's concerning. The offense was bad. You hold Dallas to 20 points at home, you should win that game. And they just weren't good enough.
So without being redundant here, attempting not to be, this is probably top 3 worst Herbert games so far throughout his career. And what's really baffling about it is this isn't the first time we've seen him deal with pressure. We've actually seen him perform very well in the face of it. Consistent pressure, actually. It's happened just this year. And he's able or has been able to soldier through it. But tonight felt different. He was never in rhythm. Now, we can also say that the offense as a whole just didn't have it together. But when everyone else goes bad, he's the one force that has to be stabilizing, and he couldn't do it today. From the very outset, everything seemed like it was sailing high. And I was wondering, like, does this have anything to do with that hand injury? But I can't make heads or tails of it because it feels like it shouldn't. I mean, it's your non-throwing hand, but I don't know, people react to things quite differently, so I can't really tell. He just felt like he was frazzled. He had happy feet. There were instances where if his first read wasn't open, he would just take off. Now, in certain instances, that made sense because, plays were breaking down and he had to make of it what he could. But in others, he was just completely missing guys. I mean, late on throws to wide open receivers. That first, I guess was the last touchdown that was scored. Before that, on that pass to Eckler, if he just glances to his right and gets that ball out there on time, Eckler walks in. It's the easiest touchdown ever. And it's a read that he makes all the time. And he was even late there. sailing those balls to Keenan on those amazing double moves, wasting those routes, those huge plays that could have resulted in points is not it's not a thing that Herbert does with any regularity. But tonight he was just completely off from the outset. And the fact that they didn't have any other factors that allowed him to, or maybe for them to lean on something else, a la the run game, didn't help the situation whatsoever. So just as a whole, man, not trying to have this be bag on Herbert night, because there's more than, just that went wrong, but it's just one of the standouts because you know what's going to come from this starting tomorrow. He's going to get the criticism, which he deserves for his play tonight, but they're going to make it all about him still not being able to come through in the clutch and win these games for the team. And honestly, to be just frank with you, it's a total crap show in general. You have the defense playing their tails off, and then, basically they sacrifice a great defensive performance for the most part to an offense that can't get it together, with an offensive coordinator who understood this defense intimately and couldn't figure it out all night long. So there's lots of blame to go around, but, without continuing to ramble on because this sucks enough, that's what I got right now.
Yeah. I don't feel like we get this type of Herbert very often. And it feels like at prime time you can get a pretty good version of Herbert, but we didn't today. And while he did miss some touchdown throws, the one, we haven't mentioned yet, is that double move to Keenan down the sideline, wide open, and overthrew him. Not a throw you see him miss very often, but yeah, man, what's really troubling to me is that they had 2 weeks to prep for this game. They got everybody back. Everybody they were missing for the last 2 weeks. We were waiting for Eckler to come back and Joey Bosa to come back, and a bunch of guys to hit the field, and they did. And then they came out and scored 17 points at home against, again, a team that Kellen Moore's familiar with, a team they were able to plan for, a team that was struggling coming into today. And while the defense did pretty good towards the end there, they really had their struggles on that last drive. They had a 3rd and 17 on that drive, a 3rd and 7, and a 3rd and 9, and then eventually stopped them on a 3rd and 10. They had their chances to stop them, and they couldn't there at the end. And then Herbert, of course, throws the game away, going to Quentin Johnston, who didn't have a catch today on 2 targets. So you kind of see why they don't really trust him all that much. But yeah, this is a tough game because coming out of the bye, everybody's pretty excited to see them come back to somewhat full strength off a 2-game winning streak. They come in and just kind of lay an egg in a pretty lethargic, kind of sleepy game coming into, a primetime game here on Monday night.
Yeah, I thought the defense played really well tonight. Like I said, you hold Dallas to 20 points, and at one point I think they were 4 of 11 on 3rd down, and they were struggling to punch the ball in the red zone. The defense did its job tonight. Got a 4th down stop. The defense did its job tonight. They played their asses off, like Craig said. They played really, really well. 5 sacks, I think, 4 or 5 sacks. They were in Dak's face all night long and missed 3 or 4 more. They had some unfortunate plays on the back end at times, but overall the defense played really well. Dak made a couple big throws, and they were able to win the game. But this is just on the offense, and I'm not even sure that I would blame Kellen Moore. I mean, the play calling wasn't perfect, but he did scheme up some plays that produced wide receivers running wide open that Herbert just didn't hit. And that last interception, that's not on QJ. That's just a bad throw under pressure by Herbert. That ball was so short, they had no chance of getting there, which is, tough on Herbert. He's under pressure. There's nowhere to step up, and he's thrown off his back foot. But that's not on QJ. It's still baffling to me that you take a guy in the 1st round and you can't figure out a way to get him involved, even with 2 weeks to prepare for the game. I think Staley deserves some credit for what was overall a really good defensive game plan. Don't love the 12-yard cushions on 3rd and medium, 3rd and long. Super frustrating. Craig's rolling his eyes. Those cushions are really frustrating. You see Michael Davis have a great pass breakup, playing press, and then he's in soft zone shells for the rest of the game. I don't get that. But otherwise, they got pressure. They rattled Dak. They had a couple opportunities to pick some balls off. They got some big stops. They were generally very effective on defense. They just couldn't move the ball. And a lot of it was that Herbert wasn't very good, and the offensive line broke down around him.
So now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, we have to give the defense their props for the performance. But let's be honest, Cowboys offense has been crap for the most part all year long. And it's been their defense that's been keeping them in games. And they got exposed when neither worked to their advantage against the Niners. So I'm not saying that to take away from the defense. What I will say that is that they ran into a situation where maybe the offense wasn't as formidable as some of the others they may run into this year or have. You got CeeDee Lamb, who's not been a part of that offense all season long. They literally haven't gotten him the ball, and they stated before the game started, if you listen to anyone anywhere, whether it was ESPN, Jerry Jones himself coming out on TV and saying that they're going to put an emphasis on getting him the ball. Well, I mean, what did he have, like 6-7 receptions for over 100 yards? I'm not sure if this was his best performance so far this year or not. You had Dak Prescott with his longest run of the season. They had their biggest play of the year against the defense. And then also you've got Brandon Cooks, who's essentially been a no-show for the entirety of the season, suddenly making his appearance tonight. I said this, and I don't say it. I mean, I say it tongue in cheek. You know, it's kind of funny, but it's also painful. They are the cure for what ails you, one way or another. Even when the defense plays a relatively good game, there's still those things that happen that pretty much blow the game up. But on the flip side of it, when you talk about the performance of Herbert, he threw that pick at the end of the game to seal it for the Cowboys. But he basically owes Deron Bland 2 of them because he had 2 drops as well. So the game actually could have been worse than what it was for him. From a performance standpoint, on the offensive side of the ball, there's still no continuity. What was supposed to be the strength, from what I thought, was the interior offensive line. And I get that they miss Corey Linsley, but the fact that they were essentially leaky all game long is inexcusable to me. You've got guys on the inside that's their home in Zion and Jamari Sawyer, who should be able to anchor down, particularly against guys in bull rushing. I know that there are a couple of plays where guys just got whipped across their face from speed. You know, Sawyer is pretty slow-footed. You got Will Clapp in there, who's a guy. He's serviceable, but he's not very athletic. He's going to give up some plays here or there, but Corey Linsley is the rock of the middle of that offensive line. And if there was any proof of how important he is, tonight was it. So essentially, I'm not sure what's going on with him long term. I hope more so than anything, his health is what's the most important. So for him to be there as a father and a husband to his family. But man, if he is okay or can be okay, this team needs him drastically, because apparently they can't get any consistency in the passing game nor the running game. So I'm not sure what you expect to happen on the offensive side of the ball. And this Quentin Johnson thing, you had 2 weeks, man. You had 2 weeks. I expected them to at least roll him out and scheme him a few touches, right? Something short. You could do some tunnel screens, maybe a jet sweep. The only jet sweep we saw tonight was to Gerald Everett, and you got too cute when you attempted to run it unnecessarily, and it cost you yardage. They don't have a plan for their first round wide receiver, and then you barely saw Darius Davis at all either. It was either Keenan or try to force the ball at Eckler. I mean, they had some pretty decent play calls in the red zone, crosses, running motions to make defenders declare man, and essentially force them to run across the formation to play catch up with the receivers. And that worked twice. But other than that, the offensive creativity was lacking and the execution was horrible. I don't know what happens now, because if Linsley's not back, they have to figure this out somehow, some way on offense. And if Herbert's seeing ghosts because of the pressure now, like what happened tonight, it's going to be a pretty long season.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like the defense definitely deserves some props today. I think there were a lot of positives, especially from Morgan Fox today. I thought Austin Johnson had a hell of a game today. I saw 3 run stops. He was really good. Khalil Mack got another sack today. Thule had a really good run stop to start the game. There were some good flashes on defense, but I really feel like at the end of the game when they had to have it on a 3rd and 17, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, I mean, you just needed one stop. They eventually got it. They ended up holding them to 3, but you'd really like to see them do it. I'd like to rewatch that play on QJ. It felt to me like on the comeback, he let Stephon Gilmore get inside of him, but I'll have to look back at that. But that was just a first glance in the replay. Either way, it was a late throw from Herbert. It shouldn't have happened. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think if you watch it, you'll see the throw was 3 or 4 yards short, which gave Gilmore the opportunity to get inside and make the play. And, QJ could have fought for it, but that throw was pretty close to being uncatchable based on where it was thrown. Not that Herbert had a lot of options based on the pressure he was under and the pocket closing around him, and he had to get rid of it, but not a great throw.
No. And I don't know what the defensive game plan was for these DBs. I mean, they were playing in the parking lot today. These 10 to 12 yard cushions today. I mean, they were just playing sticks the whole time. I didn't know what this prevent cushion was. We had talked about it multiple times, how much better this cornerback group is in press man. And then they went off today, and it just felt like they slowly got picked apart throughout this game. I know, again, there were a lot of very good plays from a lot of guys up front. I didn't think any of the DBs, I didn't think any of the corners played particularly well today.
What's the point of playing a too high shell if you're also going to play your corners off 10 to 12 yards? Because at that point, it's not even sticks. They're playing beyond the sticks and allowing guys to catch the ball. It's like an automatic first down.
They're playing quarters.
Your quarterback, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, yes, they are playing quarters, which is crazy in 3rd and 8 scenarios, things of that nature. It's like you're so afraid, you're so hell-bent on not getting beat over the top that you're willing to allow first downs on 3rd down when you should be, again, by the way, you're playing too high shells with safety help. So getting guys more pressed up towards the line of scrimmage is that much more advantageous in scenarios like that, because in the event that you do get beat in press, or even if you're playing like soft shoe press, you still have help behind you. They play scared on 3rd down, and you can't live like that on defense. If your front 4 doesn't get there, if you're just running, just your flat 4 guys, or maybe you're doing stunts and twists and you don't get home, you're asking to get picked apart. And we've seen this game in and game out. It's been this way now for a few years. And Staley would much rather allow you to work your way down the field and hope he can stop you. It's more bend, don't break. Essentially, it's a variation of what we saw when Gus was here, where it was more bend, don't break. It's just a different scheme doing it, which at the end of the day, what do you want to be? Do you just want to let teams march up and down the field on you and hope that you can hold them potentially to 3 points or force a turnover? Or do you want to force the issue? So I think, honestly and truly, there's a lack of just physicality mindset. And it starts with your head coach, because that shows me that you're not willing to get down in the trenches and get in guys' faces and force them to beat you. You'd rather give it up to them and hope you can stop them later, which I don't know what brand of football that is. It's not something I'm accustomed to or I believe in.
You made a couple points there, Craig. One, you were talking about, you have to rely on your pass rush to get home if you're playing that far off. And I think, when they've got Tooley and Mack and Bosa and Fox on the field together, I think they believe they're going to win those matchups and they're going to get home. And they might be trusting that group a little bit too much to just win one-on-one and get home before the ball comes out. And if you're 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, and you're playing 12 yards off, you're really not giving your corners a chance. That's the first thing. And the other thing you said that I totally agree with that is really frustrating me is they're soft. And it's an epidemic. It's not just on the defensive side of the ball. It's on the offensive side of the ball. When you're running bootlegs and trying to pass on 3rd and 1 every single time, because even though you say you want to be a line of scrimmage team, you can't get that 3rd and 1, that 4th and 1, and you have to pass it. You're just talking at that point about being a line of scrimmage team. They're just not physical enough on either side of the ball. And this has been an issue that has plagued them. Since Norv was here. This is an issue that's plagued them. They just haven't been physical enough. They haven't been able to consistently win at the line of scrimmage. And it gets really ugly in the red zone and on 3rd and short when everybody in the house knows they're going to try to bootleg Herbert right because they can't run the ball, and they're not going to try because they don't trust it. And for all the talk that Staley's put in about being physical and winning the line of scrimmage, they're just not doing it, and they haven't done it since he's been here. And I don't know what the fix is at this point, but it's problematic because it's costing them games.
Yeah. Let's talk about a pretty important play that happened in this game. How did you guys feel about that 4th and inches call where they tried to get was it Gerald Everett in the end zone and got knocked away? How did you guys feel about that play?
Wasn't the 4th and inches call the one that went for the touchdown? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the one before that where they turned it over and they didn't get it.
In the red zone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I was at that point in the game, I wanted them to take the points just because it was a slosh as far as offense is concerned. You got there. I know that you wanted to go for that and potentially take a lead and kind of impose your will, but I was more along the lines. My thinking was just take the points. At that point, you had a bunch of game left to go. Your defense was playing well. Just keep fighting. Just keep fighting it out. But you can't waste opportunities like those. If you're struggling offensively, just take the points.
I mean, to me, at this point, Staley going for it on 4th down is a meme. It's almost becoming cliche because this is not a team that's capable of getting those tough yards. They're just not. And he's going for it because it's his reputation, and maybe the analytics say it's time to go for it, but this team is not capable of picking up a lot of those 4th downs. So to continue to do it, you're putting your team at a disadvantage because you're giving away points. And I hate to say it because you want them to be aggressive and you want them to go for it and extend drives, but they just can't get them. It's the same thing I said when we talked about it a couple weeks ago. They are just not physical enough to pick up those 4th downs. And at this point, him continuing to go for 4th and short and having to pass it, it just shows that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand his personnel, and he's almost going for it for the sake of going for it because they're just it's not working the same way it was in 2021 when they were catching people off guard and they were putting the ball in Justin's hands because that's how they were going to win. That's not really their identity anymore. And they got to stop doing it because it's costing them games at this point.
Shoot, I just did something I didn't mean to do. All right. How did you would have taken the points?
Yeah, I would have taken the points. I just don't think this team is physical enough to pick up those tough yards right now.
Yeah,
I don't like throwing it on 4th and 1, 4th and inches. It's just soft. It's completely defeats the purpose of going for it. If you don't trust your line to pick up a yard or pick up inches in the red zone, then you shouldn't be going for it at all.
That's football in its essence, is imposing your will. And there's no better opportunity than on 4th and shorts, things of that nature. You line up man on man and you make a play. You literally show who's got the heavier set of nuts and you make it happen. And if you can't do that, then you might as well just take the points. If you're just going to try to finesse your way to a 1st down, I mean, yeah, could it work? Potentially. But they also know that you're not tough enough to do it. So they're not going to respect it. And they're going to be looking for you to throw the ball, which is why it isn't wide open. Teams that have plays like that work are guys like the 49ers, guys who are willing to pound the ball down other teams' throats. And so they have to respect the run game, which leaves guys open for opportunities like that. The Chargers are not those guys. Week 1, they made us think they potentially were going to be. And since then, it hasn't been the case.
That's the other thing is the design of the running game is really pissing me off. I'm sick and tired of this outside zone. I know they want to be like Shanahan, but can you just run the ball to your personnel, please? Run some power, run the ball down somebody's throat. I mean, the Cowboys were playing 3 backup linebackers today, basically. They were signing guys off the street all week long. And you can't pick up 4th and short, 3rd and 1 when you need it. You can't establish a running game. it's scheme, it's mentality, it's just not understanding what your identity is, which is so frustrating after 3 years. And it's just having a bad game plan. They just don't understand what they do well. And I can't fathom not understanding what you do well at this point.
Not having an identity after 5 weeks, a bye to try to put things together. Look at what's worked versus what hasn't. You had 2 weeks to do that, and this was the product.
So what now? Where do we go from here? I know we like to be kind of action oriented. This was pretty tough. A lot of penalties today, by the way. This was one of the slowest dragging ass games I can remember.
They were sloppy and undisciplined all night long. I think before we talk about action, I do think, since we're being heavily negative right now, or at least objective and honest, I do think we should call out some positives, because there were some people who played well. Keenan was fantastic tonight. He seemed like he was open all night long, even though they weren't consistently getting the ball. Palmer showed up a lot tonight on some big downs. Dean Marlowe had another really good game. Even though he got beat on that touchdown, he was in good position, had excellent coverage following Cooks across the field. Murray showed up a bunch of times. Mack had a sack. You mentioned Tooley. Fox with 2 sacks. There were a lot of people who had really good games. The Chargers have, well, that's going to be negative. I'll stay with the positives. Did you guys have any more positives?
Sorry, I'm trying to do something behind the scenes here that I accidentally messed up. Go ahead, Craig. Sorry.
No worries. It wasn't perfect, but I think Kenneth Murray also played another better than what we're accustomed to Kenneth Murray game, particularly against the run, and a couple instances in the passing game as well. There were some times when he was lined up out wide and I almost had a heart attack. Obviously, he was following the running back. So, he's lined up to the boundary or to the field. And I just knew that at one point they were going to take a shot there, and they did. But Dak was off on his throw. But he did what I believe he was asked to for the most part. I think there was a play, I can't remember exactly when it was, but that route that was gone to CeeDee Lamb in the middle of the field where there was a bit of a busted coverage. It looked like Kendricks might have gone in the wrong direction. I'm not sure if that's a Kendricks or K9 thing, can't recall, but I feel like Kendricks bit and went in the wrong direction, or misread the play, and that left a huge crater in the middle of the field. And Murray just kind of got left there hanging. But throughout the game, I feel like he played pretty consistently, coming downhill, attacking in the run game, reading keys, being physical, and finishing in the run game. The run defense as a whole actually was very impressive tonight, if we're being honest. Against the Dallas offensive line, that's pretty tough. So for them to have held Dallas to what? I didn't see what the final numbers were as far as rushing production was concerned, but the output was not very high, and that's not something I expected. I honestly thought that Dallas would kind of get things rolling in the running game, but it just didn't exist all night. And if you had told me that it was going to come down to Dak having to be the difference maker, I would have put money on that. I've been good with it, but unfortunately it just didn't work out that way. But I definitely want to give the Chargers props for what they did against the run, because that might have been their best performance in quite some time for against a team that's known for being more physical and wanting to do that.
Yeah, they wanted to run the damn ball. That's what Mike McCarthy said when he got rid of Kellen Moore. Tony Pollard only had 30 yards rushing on 15 attempts, so 2 yards a pop.
And I think he had one carry over 5 yards. Everything else was right around the line of scrimmage for the most part.
Yep. Dak was their leading rusher today on that kind of broken fourth down play on the 18-yard scamper. So, very good on the run game. We talked about Morgan Fox having a good game, Austin Johnson having a good game. I agree on Kenneth Murray. Really good tackle for a loss today. Almost got a sack. Wish a couple of guys would have wrapped up today, by the way. Kenneth Murray almost had a sack. Tooley almost had a sack. I mean,
Bosa missed a couple.
Bosa, that was bad. But I thought Sebastian Joseph Day went out, came back in, and had a pretty good effect towards the end of that game. Nick Williams, I thought, got pretty good penetration, got a big sack on that last drive to bring up third and whatever that 17 was until that holding call. I will shout out Jasir Taylor only for his special teams contribution. That pushing that blocker into the returner worked last year. Pretty veteran savvy move there to get that turnover. So good on him for that one. I'm not going to say anything about his play at corner, but
I think you just did.
I think I just did.
You're saying a lot by not saying very much at all.
Yep. Keenan was good today. Palmer was good today. Eckler showed a little bit wiggle in the passing game early on in that game. Man, they out the gate, they got a 3-and-out, went down and scored right away, and you thought, man, they had this thing hitting on all cylinders, and then fell apart pretty soon after. And I think that's probably it in terms of shout-outs. But let's talk about, and because the chat's obviously going crazy about it, and we should probably talk about two of the bigger players on this team, captains and veterans, Derwin James, Joey Bosa. Bosa, pretty much a no-show. Derwin James, again, getting penalized. Seems like he's costed the team now with these pretty stupid penalties that he's making now. What do we think about, first, I guess, Joey Bosa and his contribution now?
That was a negative part that I stopped myself from saying.
Yeah,
but I guess we'll get into it now.
Well, everybody's asking about it, so we can't shy away from it, obviously.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while, Joey is a problem because refs seem to target him, and he wasn't targeted today. He just didn't play very well. He was close on a couple sacks. There was a play early in the game where I thought he was lucky he didn't get his knee blown out. There was a really ugly cut block on the right side that damn near took his leg out. But he no-showed, and Derwin is kind of falling into that Bosa category where he's just making one stupid penalty after another, and it's pretty clear they're both being targeted. If it's even remotely questionable in terms of a penalty, they're going to get called. The roughing the passer call that Derwin got, I thought was kind of bullshit. I mean, he basically he was there like a step late, and he kind of shoved him. It was pretty ticky-tack. The headshot was dumb. Seems like he's having one of those a game now. He dropped an interception in the end zone. Derwin he's not playing very well right now. Some of it is him playing too far off the ball. Some of it is him. It seems like he's just too keyed up and trying to lay guys out and getting called for penalties. He's just doesn't look like himself, and he doesn't look like a very productive football player right now. So those guys are very highly paid. They're causing problems with penalties and just bad play, and it's an issue. And I don't know how you fix it at this point. I mean, you need them on the field. They don't really have another option at safety right now. Even if Gilman comes back, they don't really have another option at safety. And even if Bosa is just a situational rusher to keep him healthy for right now, he probably has a chance to contribute in that role. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but both those guys are becoming targets for the officials, and they're doing more harm than good at this point.
So I'll start with Derwin. There have been times here this year where he's had some questionable penalties where it just looks like, okay, what is he supposed to do in that scenario? Where it's positioning, his head with receivers or running backs who are ducking theirs, and it looks questionable, but he's just kind of put in a bad way because he's a very aggressive player, and in certain instances, that's how you have to tackle. You're going to somewhat duck your head, and there will be times when you create contact with your helmet to another player's helmet. But today, with penalties like the one that he got that cost the Chargers again, was that a third down penalty again? Did that happen on third down?
I think so.
Yeah,
that's when these seem to happen. They seem to be drive extending third down penalties. That was unnecessary. The tight end was already going down, so I understand maybe wanting to try to create contact to maybe force a turnover, but you weren't anywhere near the ball. You had no other choice but to make contact with his head. So there's just a stupid penalty. Also, we keep like we're pressing this issue. He is playing way too far off the ball. He's not best utilized in space. If you want to put him on a tight end, maybe on a slot guy and have him play man to man, that's one thing. But asking him to line up and basically patrol the deep part of the field and react to balls it's a mistake. He's a bigger safety that's more of a nickel star guy who should be playing closer to the line of scrimmage. You're asking to have him exposed in coverage because he doesn't have great change of direction. He's a freak athlete for someone of his size, but he does still have weaknesses, and we've addressed them every year. Staley is hell-bent on having him be a split safety. No idea why. As far as Joey is concerned, at this point, I don't have a lot to say about Joey just because there isn't enough Joey to talk about right now. He's barely on the field. You go into the bye week. Apparently, there's a toe issue that he suffered in the Raiders game, I believe. And then you go 2 weeks, you come in and you're essentially a no-show in this game. And I'm not trying to be critical of the guy in the way of being hurt. Like, it's a violent game. You're going to deal with injuries.
He didn't play in the Raiders game, did he? I thought he was out in the Raiders game.
No, you're right. He didn't play in the Raiders game.
He hurt himself during the bye.
Right. Well, the other was a hamstring situation, and then the toe thing popped up. I thought the toe happened before the bye. I guess maybe it was. But then that just goes to show you what's going on. How do you become more injured in the time when you're supposed to be recovering and there shouldn't be as heavy of a load? Even the situation with Palmer that he clearly played through, but this is about Joey and Derwin. Joey just hasn't been available enough. And it's unfortunate because you're paying him the amount of money that you are, and he has to be a difference maker. But when he's on the field, he either doesn't stay there very long or he contributes in spurts, and he also costs you. So at this point, are you breaking even with Joey Bosa, or is he netting you a negative? It's hard to say at this point. It really is. And it sucks to say that about a player of his caliber, someone that a lot of Chargers fans love, but we have to be honest here. If they're not producing, and that's because they're not available, then, how can you defend it? But what you can't have are irresponsible penalties that cost your team, especially in games like this that are tight, and you need every turn or change of possession that you can get and hand the ball over to your offense and let your defense reap the reward for playing well. You can't be extending drives with stupid penalties. And that's something Brandon Staley's going to have to address, and you can't be a captain on the team and be doing that also. So it's setting the wrong precedent.
Yeah, we've talked about this for weeks, and I feel like it goes back to even last season. Joey Bosa's been a target of the rest for a while now.
A couple years. It seems like since he's been in the league, he's been a target.
Right. But for Derwin, it feels like it's going back to last year. And we've definitely talked about it through the first couple of weeks that he's played. And he's just got to be better than that. You got to know that they're going to be looking for it now. So it sucks that he can't play loose and free, but also a lot of these, I think the roughing the passer was kind of ticky-tack, but the personal foul, that was pretty clear. Yeah, he hit him in the helmet, and he led with his shoulder, made some contact with the helmet, and so it was a pretty easy call, and it's costing the team yards. It's 15 yards, and it's a first down after they pretty much got a stop on third down. So he has to know and be better than what he's being right now. It's not like you got to completely neuter him, but he's got to be able to know, and you got to tell him that he just can't be doing what he's doing. And I'm a little concerned about the way he was just kind of boat raced by Dak Prescott today on that fourth down.
He followed the jet sweep. That's why he got beat. He was headed in one direction, and Dak ran past him. Dak was already gone by the time he turned around.
But there was a good 5 yards where he could have caught up to Dak Prescott and was kind of jogging and didn't catch up to him. I think it feels to me like a healthy Derwin James would have caught up to a big guy like Dak Prescott. But regardless, he's got to be better on these penalties because it's now becoming an issue. Bosa right now, He's been a no-show, but also he's been injured. And he's kind of just been in part of the way. He's kind of a part-time player right now and just a role player contributor. So I'm not all out on Joey Bosa yet, but I mean, at some point he's got to start contributing because they're paying him way too much money and Derwin way too much money to start having a positive impact on this team. And both of those guys are starting to be kind of a negative at this point. So yeah, these are two guys that are going to have to be better. Are you guys in the trade Bosa or trade Derwin camp?
I mean, I've been saying for a while. I think the Joey situation might take care of itself at the end of the year. He's been so injured. He showed some signs of some potential emotional distress during the playoff game last year, and when he went to see his brother play in the playoffs last year. And he just strikes me as a guy who knows he doesn't need football anymore. With all the injuries adding up, I would not be surprised if he retires before his contract is up. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't have anything else left to prove. I'm sure he's got all of his money invested and he's making a shit ton of money, whatever it's doing for him. So I think he retires, or you might potentially be looking at a cut, because I don't think they can continue paying him what they're paying him to get what they're getting. It just doesn't work between the penalties, and it's either a false start or lining up offsides or a late hit. He's just a target, and you can't have two guys like that. I don't know that Derwin's going anywhere, but I think Joey's time here is probably, I think he's on borrowed time.
Yeah, I think we've been sharing similar sentiments about Joey here for a bit, just listening to some of the conversations that he's had and the way that he talks about, his time in the game so far and dealing with the injuries and how they've taken like a mental toll on him, and to consistently have to be dealing with them year in and year out. He just seems like a guy, I'm not going to say he's just buying his time at this point, but he doesn't feel like he's very long for the NFL. I can't see him playing multiple more years, whether it's his body failing him or him just mentally being checked out of the game. Not saying that he's no longer passionate about that. I would never speak on someone to that degree because we're not in that man's mind. We don't know how he feels about where he is right now, but I would have to imagine that with everything that's going on, the injuries piling up, the less time he's spending on the field. I think I spoke to this in our last live. Joey's played less than 75% of his regular season games throughout his career. For someone that makes the amount of money that he does, that's pretty much unacceptable just from an organizational standpoint. And I'm sure that he wants to be on the field producing his best product. But if you're always battling something, then I can't imagine that makes you feel like you're going to get to your apex, and maybe he's already reached it. As far as trading him is concerned, would I do it? I'd entertain it. Do I think they will? No. But I also do agree with Jamie that I'm not certain that he'll be around again after this season. And they may already be looking at Thule as his replacement long term. So you take that into account, and it probably does end up working itself out. But also, where Derwin is concerned, Derwin's essentially a face of the team. If you're not talking about Herbert, you probably say that would be Derwin. They're not letting Derwin go anywhere. He's their guy. And he's going to be around through this contract and potentially longer. He just feels like one of those Chargers guys. He kind of has sort of the way that they talk about him, that Keenan aura around him, even though he's not necessarily produced to that level at this point, but he just feels like one of their guys. I wouldn't trade Derwin only because there's potential for Derwin to still be a high level Hall of Fame type player if he's used correctly. That's a coaching issue, whereas Joey is an availability and discipline issue. And so those are multiple strikes that I don't think you can overlook.
I think with Derwin, it's a coaching issue, but it's also a personnel issue. They just don't have the roster to let him play where he needs to play.
So if we're talking about now, if Joey Bosa's gone, I mean, Khalil Mack is owed like $38 million next year, 38.5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, $38.5 million if he plays next year. So that means he's not going to be on the team. because they could save $23 million if they cut him, which they're going to end up doing. That was part of the restructure. Joey Bosa, if he's gone, I mean, one, I'm not sure that I don't know a team that would take on his contract, but then also, if I'm not mistaken, Joey Bosa has an out in 2024. So
Bosa's due 20 or 30, almost 37 million next year because of the way they restructured him. Yeah.
But they have a potential out in 2024. I'm almost positive.
They do.
But I was saying Mac is owed $38.5 million. And he's gone. And then they have a potential out of Bosa. So if they both decide to get out, then you got Thule, and then it's time to start drafting edge. On top of all the other needs they have. It's Chris Rumpf and Thule for edge rushers.
Honestly, if you're going to invest in a position, it might as well be edge.
Yeah. And I'm not in the camp of trading Derwin.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can trade Bosa with the injury issues and the penalty issues and the money. I mean, maybe as a pure salary dump for like a late round pick swap, maybe, but I don't think they're going to get anything out of it if they trade him.
To Jake Cameron, shout out Morgan Fox, man. We already did. Unless you're saying, hey, man, shout out Morgan Fox. If you're shouting out Morgan Fox, great. But we did that earlier if you missed it.
2 or 3 times, actually.
Yeah, multiple times. All right, so Chargers are 2-3.
2-4. 2-4.
2-4.
Right? No, 2-3. You're right.
3. Jeez, you're already
jumping the gun.
I'm counting the Chiefs game already.
2-3. What now? Where let's start going now. They're going against Kansas City, who's red hot. They were just toying with the Broncos, by the way, on Thursday night. I mean, they were running trick plays just because they could. And anyway, so red hot Chiefs, they play Kansas City. One of those games where, we all talked about how important this game was on Monday night to get that win, because you don't want to lose this game and then play Kansas City. What now, guys? What now? Is it tank and pray, as Lucas Leonard says? Or are we not there yet?
I mean, why? What are we tanking for at this point? I mean,
Caleb Williams.
Now, I know Herbert had a bad game, but come on, Garrett.
No, I'm just playing.
No, I know, but I mean, we know how the Chargers are, man. They'll never be bad enough to have one of those higher picks. I'm not going to go to the point of saying like they're just middling and that's where they're going to be for the remainder of the year, but we always find ourselves here. And it's typically at the beginning of the season where they have these uphill battles and they kind of get on a bit of a run, whether like the schedule evens out for them and they get on, a few games winning streak and they make it competitive again. But this was the game that I felt like they had to have, because going into Arrowhead on a short week and all you do is play close games, and also you don't have the Chief killer Mike Williams anymore.
And Chiefs getting an extra couple days of prep because they played on Thursday.
And granted, the Chargers do play the Chiefs very closely, but there's always just those 1 or 2 plays, a couple of calls that the Chiefs get, especially at home, that end up clinching a game for them. Again, I felt like this Cowboys game was a must win when you considered what came immediately after it. And so what's next? I mean, they have to put this one behind them, figure out, number one, what they have to figure out is how they can get Quentin Johnston involved in this offense. They have to. They absolutely have to. There's no other choice at this point. If teams figure out a way to shut Keenan down or at least contain him, then what do? Palmer showed up a little bit more tonight. He was able to step up. I mean, there were a couple of instances where the ball didn't necessarily get to him, but he made some really clutch catches. He performed well when his number was called upon. But you can't expect him to necessarily be who Mike Williams is for you against the Chiefs. I'm sure he'll perform well, but who's your third weapon offensively? Eckler has to kind of get back in the swing of things. Hopefully your defense plays a little bit better. But, here's a news flash. The Chiefs' defense is actually good now. So where they were just leaning on the offense, they play significantly well on the defensive side of the ball, and they have Mahomes, which is essentially a cheat code. So I don't know, man. You just have to kind of put this one behind you and figure out some way to steal a win in Arrowhead to sort of right the ship. Because if you lose that game, then at that point, I'm not sure what happens. But you have to find a way to win this next game.
Yeah.
I think go ahead, Garrett.
No, I just want to agree. I mean, I feel like losing this game sucks. It feels like it was pretty close to a must win as it is this early in the season, as it can be. But this is also an NFC team. If you can go in and get a divisional win against the Chiefs and cut into that lead in KC, that's huge. And obviously that's best case scenario. So I absolutely agree.
I think offensively, I agree with Craig. You got to get Quentin Johnson in. I don't know what's going on. If Herbert doesn't trust him, if the coaches don't trust him, I'm not sure what's happening there. But you've got to manufacture some touches for him. Jet sweeps, tunnel screens, bubble screen, whatever it might be, some slants, some digs. Get him the ball in space in the middle of the field and let him make plays with his legs. It's going to make things a hell of a lot easier. I don't know why it's taken 5 weeks at least to figure that out, but that's where we are. I would also start looking at other options at center. If Corey Linsley is not coming back, they cannot rely on Will Clapp for the rest of the season. I would start having Brendan Hymas and Will Clapp compete for that center job, maybe even start rotating them every few series to see if you can bring Hymas along and have him in a position to play some serious snaps down the stretch, because they are having major communication issues in the middle of that offensive line. And they're also having some major protection issues in the middle of that offensive line. Clapp just isn't getting it done. I know some people have said that he's played decently well for a backup. He was flat out bad tonight, and their protections, their rotation slides, whatever you want to call it, they're not functioning at a high level right now with Will Clapp at center. So I would try to get Hymas in there and see if you can get him ready to play some major snaps down the stretch. They also need to start scheming more touches for Everett, since he seems to be one of the few guys on the team who's fighting for yardage after the catch. They did a great job early in the game of getting him one-on-one with a linebacker and getting a chunk play, and then it kind of just went away for the rest of the game. So they've got to find ways to get him the ball in the middle of the field, up the seam, get back to running power. I don't care if on defense, they need to stick with Marlowe. Marlowe's playing exceptionally well. They can't put Gilman out there. It just gives them more options. I would like to see Derwin at some star, see Derwin play some linebacker at times, maybe play on the edge a little bit. The one thing they're doing really well is they're generating a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. Not so much in the Miami game, but for the last 4 games, they've done a really good job of generating pressure on the quarterback. Hopefully that continues. They're doing a good job of designing stunts and executing stunts. Play more press. They keep running this soft zone and they're getting beat. The most success they've had since Staley's been here is when they simplify things and play more press. Let's play more press and let these guys play. Stop letting them catch the ball in front of you.
Yeah. I was going to mention press. They have got to get the running game going. Under 2 yards of carry is atrocious. If they got to do that kind of short extension of the run game thing they did, where they would get, those quick outs, quick screens, get those quick hitters for 4 to 5 yards to kind of set it up, I'm all for that. They have got to figure something out, because this run game just wasn't good today. So bad that they, I feel like it played into that 4th and short where they just decided they couldn't run it, because it felt like, more times than not, there's a QB sneak there. Maybe some think it's because of Herbert's thumb, or that he can't go under center or whatever, but you'd at least hope that they would run the ball at some point, whether it's with Eckler or Herbert or whatever. But they end up throwing the ball there, and it just feels like they have got to get that run game going, because without Mike Williams, they're going into Arrowhead on the road. they have got to get that running game going because they're not going to be able to depend on Herbert on the road in Arrowhead because it's always a bad place to play and it's always hostile. I know it'll be close, but can't put it all on Herbert's shoulders again because I think we'll get a lot of what we'll get today. While we're doing this podcast, there's been a lot of speculation about the turnover at the end of the game and Quentin Johnston's route. And we have it here from a lot of the draft nicks who, are comparing all the corners and I don't know why it's not coming up. Hold on a second. Let me give it one more. That are comparing, JSN and Addison. Go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say while you're doing that, Garrett.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, you were talking about not having the guys in the secondary to potentially line Derwin up at star in the box. So it looks like Raheem Lane went down today also.
Yeah.
So that's one less guy. So it's not helping with the prospects of potentially having him be closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, AJ Finley had to come in today.
Yeah, if they've got to have Gilman on the field playing the back end, I don't know. They've got some issues at safety. Marlowe's playing really well, but Derwin struggles away from the line of scrimmage. Gilman should be playing in the box, but that's Derwin's spot. So they've got some issues back there they've got to figure out.
All right, here it is. So, like I was saying, a lot of the draft guys are talking about, the guys that went after QJ, Addison, Zay Flowers, and they're showing, they said this was an issue in college, and it looks like he might have got pushed around here a little bit.
He's not physical enough.
They just let Gilmore get on top of him. Pushes him right aside, gets right in front of him.
Can't see it.
You can't see that?
No.
You can't see the video playing?
No.
No, it's not popping up.
What are you talking? I'm watching it in front of my eyes. Okay, hold on.
It's not there.
You guys are crazy.
We're not lying to you. We wouldn't do that.
It's not playing for them either? Hold on a second. Do you see that?
Now we see it, kind of.
Yes.
It's a little blurry, but we can see it.
Yeah, I know. But this is all right. Okay. Here it is. Okay.
Oh,
that's PI.
he got bodied and they didn't. Oh,
I mean, he
wow.
chucked him out of the way. That's terrible. How do you not call that?
Well,
So the absence of a call there is really bad. But these are all things that were in his college tape. QJ's. He was not a physical route runner, not a very polished route runner to begin with, but not very physical when corners got their hands on him. He was not accustomed to corners getting their hands on him because he's used to getting 10 to 15-yard cushions so he wouldn't run by people.
Oh, so he should have been playing for the Cowboys then. Against us.
Obviously, yeah.
Well,
we are cushion, baby.
Oh, man. Man, oh, man. With all the calls today.
They played, man, that game was called so tight. And then for that not to get called is just absurd.
Well, I mean, this year there have been some extremely questionable calls that have affected some games, and it just seems to be like the path that is going to be on for the rest of the year. So I'm a little surprised based on the way that they called the game that didn't get a flag, because they were literally calling everything tonight. So that's a bit surprising, especially
even stuff that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Well, shout out that one Charger fan chick who was like everywhere today. I'm sure she's not feeling good.
Yeah, they made it a point to like put her on camera every opportunity
multiple times. Yeah, and I'm sure she's dying because she felt everything in that game. I guess we're kind of up to it, but a little bit, yeah, a little of all of us, but we've somehow become a little bit more numb to it. All right, guys. Well, we're hitting an hour here. We appreciate you guys joining us for After Hours. Tomorrow, schedule change. We're doing what are we doing? Roundtable. tomorrow.
Yeah.
So join us. We're going to be live. We are going to do a roundtable. Make sure to shoot us your questions. We'll answer them here live. Send it to us on Twitter. If you're in Discord, send them there too. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.